this special call entitled "Every Student Known: What Did It Take to Implement Metro Nashville Public Schools Navigator Initiative?" I'm Paul Revel, the faculty director of EdRedesign, and we're delighted to have this new case study to share with you. And I want to thank Michelle Sadaka in particular, and our research department headed by Lynn Sachs in general for this good work. I particularly am grateful to Dr. Adrienne Battle and her team for their efforts in helping us not only put together this case, but most importantly, to doing this work in the first place and becoming really a national model for success planning and the concept of every child having a navigator. You know, the EdRedesign had been working on this concept well before COVID, and a number of you on the call have been experimenting with this work around the country, going deeper on personalization. We talk a lot about personalization, but it's hard to put it into practice, and a number of bold leaders have taken steps to do so around the country. But it really caught fire during the pandemic, when districts like Nashville felt an exceptional need to reach out to students who were off the grid and with whom they needed to have contact, and there needed to be clear relationships of individuals from the school system to the family and to the children. And now more than ever, returning to school after the pandemic, children need navigators. They need to be seen, heard, understood, and responded to. And the concept of navigators is ever more relevant and important, and we hope central to the discussion of how to achieve equity in this country and how to make schools more effective in that process, but also how to think holistically about the lives of children, both inside and outside of school, and meet them where they are and give them what they need. And we turn repeatedly to Nashville in this work because of Dr. Battle's outstanding leadership here. In the midst of the pandemic, they felt the need to reach out, and they're now serving 61,000 students and 5,600 navigators participating in this. They're gathering data on the interactions that navigators have with the students in the school system, and aggregating that data up to the systems level so that they can use it in building a more effective cradle to career pipeline for young people. And for folks around the country to see that this kind of movement toward personalization is possible at this scale is truly inspiring. And I can't tell you how many people, when I talk about this work, respond with such enthusiasm and have great hope now that they see you can do it at the scale that's been done in Nashville. It seems like it may be possible to do this everywhere. And that, of course, is what we're hoping, and it's in service of that idea of building a movement toward personalization, toward customizing, toward each child. What we're doing regularly in medicine and increasingly in business needs to happen in education and child development. And Nashville is pointing the way in which to do this work. So we have an opportunity today to get together and think about the Nashville experience and what it has to teach us about the work more generally. So we're thrilled to have all of you with us. We appreciate Dr. Battle's leadership on this. And with that, Tahita, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Paul, for welcoming everyone. My name is Tahita Jackson. I am the director for the Institute for Success Planning. Welcome, Dr. Battle and your team. Thank you for not only working with us to be able to create the case study, but for all of the hard work that Paul just named that you do every day on behalf of children and youth in your school district. So we're going to start, if we can go to the next slide, with a community builder. Just the session overview, initially, he just talked about us going over the broader personalization lessons, the case study, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion and also a Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat box or during the Q&A to be able to put them in the chat box at that point. So we're going to start with a community builder where we're going to identify one hope you have for today's session. It's important for us to be able to understand how you're coming into the space. We want to welcome all of you. So we have some of our participants from our communities of practice, both success planning and by all means. We also have national partners and other funders and community leaders and alumni on the call. So we just wanted to thank you all for participating. But if you can identify one hope you have for today's session, and we'll really try to incorporate and look at those hopes to be able to incorporate it throughout our presentation. So if you can do that in the chat box, that would be helpful. Michelle, as everyone's doing that, someone put in, Claudia said interested in understanding the implementation of success planning at the district and school scale. So definitely that will be covered in some of the conversations. Understanding the ways and types of individuals student connection is made practical and meaningful in schools, incorporating student voice into policy change. So people have different entry points and interests in the conversation today, and hopefully you will not only gain additional knowledge and information, but take something with you to be able to think about local implementation and if it's something that you're interested in doing in your local community. Michelle, if we can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about EdRedesign. Paul Revel is our founder and director of EdRedesign Lab. You just heard from him, and as a organization, we seek to provide every child in the U.S., particularly those living in poverty, with the opportunity to succeed in education and life. And we do that in multiple ways. So we do field work where we work with several communities of practice to be able to build the skills of leaders to implement such strategies that we as personalization, as we're going to talk about today. And then movement building to really think about how do we advance this as a broader paradigm and a shift in the way that we do schooling, and potentially look at coalition building and policy change in that sense. And then also research. So this is a part of the research work that we do. So the case today is an example of some of the things that we do around studying what we learn from our communities of practice in partnership with local community, really disseminating documents and tools and resources that we're able to advance the field and really thinking about broader personalization. We all know that young people exist in an ecosystem, so this work is cross-sector, and we work with community leaders to be able to collaborate across each of those sectors to ensure that there are systems of supports that are ensuring that there are more equitable access and opportunities for all young people. And we say all, it means all, not just the students that are easy to reach, but all of the students or young people in communities across all ages and stages, so from cradle to career. I talked about cradle to career supports, and we're thinking about eliminating barriers and creating opportunities in all of those spaces, and really thinking about how do we build social capital for young people so that we can ensure that they have social and economic mobility more broadly and can be successful in the way that they determine success, and that every student is known, seen, and heard, and able to dream big and really think about the things that they want to be able to accomplish in life. When we talk about personalization, we're talking about meeting every child or youth where they are and giving them what they need. We do that through our success planning strategy, which is a system that diagnoses the needs and the strengths of every young person, and this then supplies them with some customized opportunities and supports. If you can go to the next slide. We have 4 different components in our success planning strategy. So a lot of times in communities, the success planning might be embedded in a broader place-based strategy. A lot of the communities that we have in our community of practice, that is the case. but there are 4 different components where there is a navigator or a caring adult that is connected to a young person and helps them co-create a plan of action, a plan for action that they can realize in partnership with their community and their families, giving input to that as well. And then that system of supports is so important that once the plan of action is created, that there are systems and activities and programs available for young people to be able to thrive. And that is not from a deficit-based lens of needs, but also really thinking about what are some of the things that they're good at and how do we support those things as well. And then having data-formed decision-making happening from a data platform that is informing the entire process. The data that comes from that platform is oftentimes connected to a cross-sector body, such as children's cabinets, where we have decision makers and philanthropy and leaders that are making strategic decisions about education and resources, able to use that data to be able to inform the way that they're thinking strategically to provide that system of supports to young people across the community. Our current community of practice is comprised of these 12 communities. We are in the current, this is the current cohort, and we are in the process of expanding to a cohort 2, so we'll be announcing that soon. If you are interested in advancing your individualized or personalization work, you can contact us, and even if you are not in the cohort, there are opportunities to be in our broader learning community as well. And then just some lessons learned, as Paul mentioned, this really resonates with people at this moment, especially because of the implications we saw from COVID, that it is cross-sector in nature and collaboration is key, and that there are some benefits to participating in the success planning, but also connecting it to the larger collaborative action work that we see within our children's cabinets. And I just want to double down on the leadership piece. Dr. Battle, as the leader of Metro Nashville Public Schools, really took on the charge during COVID to really think about how every student was known. And I just want to lift up that across all of our communities for successful implementation, it takes a lot of culture shift and mindset work that has to happen, some intentional design and messaging, buy-in at all levels, very clear processes and protocols, clear lines of communication. So this is not always easy work, but it's the right work to be able to really think about how our systems are designed to support young people in a comprehensive and holistic way. And then lastly, leadership matters. So a lot of times it takes us to challenge our assumptions of what we have about systems and the young people within those systems, to interrogate our current practices and processes, and then to model the way, to act with humility, and then also to foster a culture of trust and respect. I won't read them all, but there is an opportunity through success planning and other collaborative action work to really think about how we're readying the systems and how leadership matters in rather the implementation is successful, or that they can meet those challenges, or if there is some work to be done to be able to make those culture and mindset shifts throughout. So I'm not going to talk. I want you to be able to talk any further. I want you to be able to hear from not only Michelle Sadaka, my colleague, who helped to write the case. She worked very closely with Metro Nashville to be able to get the information. So Michelle, I will turn it over. Michelle is the manager, the senior research manager at EdRedesign, and worked with the research department led by Lynn Sachs as well to be able to create the case. So Michelle, I will turn it over to you to give highlights on the case, and then we will do the panel discussion with Dr. Battle and her team.
Thanks so much, Tauhida. Before I provide a brief overview of the case study, I'd like to share 2 quotes that powerfully illustrate the impact of Metro Nashville's Navigator initiative. So the first quote is by a recent grad, Ebenezer Hale. He described, he said the following: I just think that the person that I am has changed drastically because of my relationship with Mr. Fox, who served as his navigator. He's one of those people in my life that pushes me to not only achieve my academic goals, but also achieve personal goals, such as where I want to see myself in a couple of years and what type of person that I want to be. As a teenager, sometimes it seems like I don't want to talk to people, but if you have the person that's coming to you with the right questions, it becomes easier to open up. And the next quote is from a parent who shares her perspective on the Navigator initiative, Ms. Ulsa Whitson, who is parent of 2 elementary school students in the Metro Nashville Public Schools. And I'd just like to acknowledge that Ms. Ulsa Whitson is here with us today. So very, very glad that you're able to join us. Ms. Whitson said, as a parent, I feel good knowing that there are people invested in my children at the school. It helps to know there's that extra layer of support. My children feel that they belong at the school and there are adults that care about them, not just about their grades, but about them as a human being. Okay, now I am going to dig into some of the details of our case study and share some highlights with you all. So the purpose of our case study is to inform school and community leaders who are interested in adopting personalized relationship-based strategies, what we call success planning, as Paul and Tauhida described earlier. The case provides an overview of Metro Nashville Public Schools and related programs and initiatives that support children, youth, and families. It chronicles the inception and evolution of the Navigator initiative over the past 3 years, as well as highlights progress to date. And then finally, the case spotlights key lessons that have been identified by district leaders to enable successful implementation. And you'll hear more about the key lessons during the panel discussion today. We conducted interviews via Zoom with district, school leaders and staff, as well as students and families and organizational partners. We investigated a single urban district implementing success planning, Metro Nashville Public Schools in Nashville, Tennessee. As you heard earlier, Nashville implemented the initiative in 2020, and it just completed its 3rd year of implementation. Metro Nashville Public Schools comprises over 150 schools that serve more than 80,000 students, making it one of the largest districts in the country. The district has a diverse student population, which is approximately 39% African American, 31% Hispanic, 25% white, 4% Asian, and less than 1% are Hawaiian Pacific Islander and Native American. About 35% of Metro Nashville students come from economically disadvantaged circumstances, 27% are English language learners, and 12% are students with disabilities. So why was Navigator launched? You did hear earlier that Navigator was launched originally as a response to the COVID pandemic in 2020 as a way to reconnect with students and families. It has now become an essential district-wide strategy. Navigator is part of the district's broader Every Student Known vision. You'll hear a little more about that overarching vision from Dr. Battle in a little while. And the Navigator initiative aligns with existing student support efforts, such as multi-tiered system of supports, or MTS. So what exactly is Navigator and how does it work in action? Early on in the planning phase, Metro Nashville leaders made 2 pivotal decisions. They decided that Navigator would seek to serve all students rather than just a subset, and any school personnel could serve with training as a navigator. So that means that navigators can be teachers, they can be front office staff or cafeteria workers, among other roles. In addition to the navigator position, Metro Nashville devised other key roles, such as navigator leads and navigator school leadership teams. The navigator leadership teams monitor school level data and trends, as well as link students to resources and services. The navigator leads are school-based staff who offer direct support and guidance to navigators. Navigators meet one-on-one with students in an in-person monthly meeting. These meetings are typically held during personalized learning time or advisory periods. Through these conversations, navigators identify students' needs, their strengths, their interests, and then they facilitate their access to both school-based and community-based resources, activities, and other opportunities through a process called collaborative referrals. Navigators record information from the check-in meetings using Microsoft Forms, which are linked to the district's student information system. It was important to the district to keep the ratios of students to navigators as low as possible. So currently there are approximately 12 students per navigator at the elementary level and about 15 students per navigator at the middle and high school levels. In addition to the monthly in-person navigator check-in meetings, the district implemented a student-facing app called Sown to Grow, really with the intention of elevating student voice. You can see here on the slide a screenshot of one of the student views when a student logs into Sown to Grow. So they will select an emoji that best reflects how they're feeling that week, and they will respond to a specific prompt. It might be a little hard to read on the screen, but the prompt here says, what's going well and what's been hard? Teachers then respond in real time and then address any concerns that might have been flagged in the app. This all feeds into Navigator. Youth communicate their goals and their needs in student-led conferences during check-ins with their navigators. Metro Nashville's Navigator initiative has made impressive progress in record time. So again, the initiative is only 3 years old. It's been implemented just a relatively short amount of time. And some highlights here are from the 2021-2022 academic year, which is the most recent year of data available. There were over 700,000 Navigator check-ins with students. 61,000 students logged weekly reflections and goals in Sown to Grow. 2,400 alerts were generated and responded to by student support staff. Next, I want to share several key lessons that have been identified by district leaders for successful implementation. First, identify a collective felt need, connect to the vision, and coalesce leaders at all levels. Metro Nashville leaders came together around a common vision using the opportunity that pandemic provided and the strong felt need across all stakeholders to reconnect with students. And this has been instrumental for propelling and sustaining the Navigator initiative. We'll hear more about how Metro Nashville leaders built strong buy-in and support during our panel conversation. Another key lesson is to build on existing elements and develop over time. Metro Nashville designed Navigator as a strategy that could bolster and align with existing student support efforts already underway in schools. Rather than wait until the district had all the optimal components in place, such as an integrated data system, leaders proactively responded to the moment and they used what they already had to get started. They leveraged existing elements, such as I mentioned earlier, the multi-tiered system of supports, and designated time blocks like personalized learning time and advisory periods to embed Navigator within current efforts. Another key lesson is to establish non-negotiables with freedom to innovate. Metro Nashville struck a careful balance between mandating district-wide non-negotiables and granting flexibility for schools to adapt and innovate based on their own context. Some examples of non-negotiables include the district intends that every student is paired with a navigator. Schools are expected to encourage students to use Sown to Grow weekly, and navigator check-ins must be logged into the student information system. Examples of flexibility include schools having the ability to determine when they'll hold navigator check-ins. So for instance, some schools have opted for a late start to the academic classes and they begin the day with Navigator, while other schools have incorporated Navigator into its advisory period. In the case of Sown to Grow implementation, some schools have decided to use the app's academic goal setting capacities, while others are primarily leveraging its social emotional learning and self-reflection functionality. Next, another key lesson is to start with the data system you have and improve it when you can. To meet the moment, district leaders decided to use existing technology to implement the initiative quickly and avoid planning paralysis and delay. Over time, they've revamped their approach to improve the user experience and more readily collect data. Another important lesson that district leaders learned is to align resources through strategic partnerships. The district identified critical needs from its initial data dashboard and sought to align resources to address them. An example of this is the district responded to growing mental health needs by expanding its contracts with mental health providers. Finally, another lesson is to prioritize funding and investment for personalized student support. The promising results of the Navigator initiative to date have led Metro Nashville to invest both pandemic relief and operational funding in the effort to provide students with personalized support. Meanwhile, schools have directed funding dispersed by the district to support a range of student services. While we know that the pandemic relief funding will eventually end, Metro Nashville is committed to sustaining the Navigator initiative as signaled by its decision to prioritize the effort in its budget. In closing, I would like to thank Metro Nashville Public Schools and all the interviewees that participated in this case study and shared their perspectives with us. We learned so much through the process and are just really grateful to be able to share their great work with the broader field. I'm going to hand it back to you now, Tauhida.
Now for the best part, we get the privilege of working with not only Metro Nashville Public Schools, but other communities across the country doing this work. But I want to take the time to highlight Metro Nashville's work, and I'm going to introduce their leader. Dr. Adrienne Battle is the director of Metro Nashville Public Schools. She has spent almost an entire career at Metro Nashville Public Schools, previously serving as a math, reading and language arts teacher and assistant principal, academic principal and executive principal, a turnaround coach for principals of the district's priority schools, and as a community superintendent overseeing all schools in the southeast quadrant of the city, as well as high schools across the district. A Nashville native, Dr. Battle is a graduate of the district's John Overton High School, Missouri State University, and Tennessee State University, where she earned her Master's of Education Specialist and doctorate degrees in Educational Administration and Supervision. She was recently named Professional Educators of Tennessee's 2022 Superintendent of the Year. In 2021, she was named the Tennessee Principals Association's Supervisor of the Year and received the Nashville NAACP's Legacy Award. In 2015, she received the William J. and Lucille H. Fields Award in support of excellence in Tennessee secondary leadership from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, as a result of leading Antioch High School to become the first zoned high school to ever be named a Tennessee Reward School, the top distinction a school can earn in Tennessee. So without further ado, now you understand why Dr. Battle and her team are so amazing, not just from their accomplishments, but their work. But I will turn it over to Dr. Battle.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you so much to Paul, to Tauhida, Lynn, Michelle, and the rest of the team at the EdRedesign Lab and the Harvard Graduate School of Education for this opportunity. Thank you for the work you lead, not only across the country, but across the world. It's so impactful, the way in which we convene and stay focused on the strategies, the high-level strategies and planning that is necessary to make sure that our students, our young people have what they need. My team and I are so happy to be here with you today. And Ms. Whitson, welcome. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your leadership and just really exemplifying the continuum of care that we have for our young people here in Nashville. So I'll just jump in before I jump to the slide around our celebrations. I just want to make a few comments. And the first one is that Navigator is fundamentally part of who we are. It is what we call a pandemic keeper. Now, many of us don't have lots of fond memories in responding to the impacts and the disruptions caused by the pandemic. But what it did do was force us to rethink the way in which our systems and our districts work to keep our students at the core of everything that we do. It grew out of wanting to make sure we knew how students and their families were doing during a very unprecedented time for everyone. I mean, simply, we were missing those opportunities to chat and catch up with each other that students and teachers and other staff members have when they're physically in school, right? Many of us, almost all of us initially were learning virtually as we closed out the 2020 year. We didn't have the 2-minute talk in the hallway. We didn't have the quick, how are things going conversations at the teacher's desk before the bell rang. All the benefits of in-person, day-to-day proximity and communication were gone just like that, right? I mean, it literally happened overnight, and we were making the most difficult educational decisions that most of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes. We knew we had to have a way to make sure we understood what kids and their families needed. We had to have a way to stay connected with students through the computer screen and across the miles that suddenly just immediately stretched between them and our teachers and our staff. Navigator is about identifying what each child needs and aligning the supports to those needs. I mean, rethinking everything and making sure that all of that alignment really started with meeting the needs of our students. And quite frankly, schools do not and should not have to meet every single need. We have community partners who can help with this work and supporting our students. So we want to know our students as people and help them succeed as individuals. These are our community's children. These are our own children, including mine. I'm a parent of a student in Metro Nashville Public Schools as well, and every child needs a champion. Navigator supports every aspect of a child's growth and development. So we're focused in Metro Nashville Public Schools around not just academic and social emotional learning, but the integration of the two and so much more. This is why we have staff members regularly checking in with every student, as you heard, getting to know them personally as an individual and getting to know what drives them as well as what they need. Navigators meet with their students one-on-one, as you've heard, at least once a month and often most times during the school day. We started out with that happening virtually, and as we've gotten back to the in-person learning environment, we do these check-ins in person. Some of them already had these relationships before Navigator started, and I think that's a testament to the types of foundational beliefs we have as a school district. But we had some of this thanks to our high school advisory programs, just being home to the internationally known academies of Nashville that is a part of that work as well. So school staff make time daily for personalized learning time and advisory opportunities. We have weekly online SEL self-reflections completed by students within the Zone to Grow platform. Our adults have learned that this is also helpful for us as well, with an opportunity for the staff to provide feedback. And that is something that we phased in over time. We wanted to lift up the voices of our students, but we also wanted to provide feedback. And again, we have at least one in-person or check-in, monthly with our student. So you've heard already about our mantra, our district's mantra. So every student known is our district's mantra. That is our why. That is what we consider our through line in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I've never seen the district embrace something so uniformly and enthusiastically as every student known, but there's a reason for that. And it's because that wasn't just me and my team coming up with a mantra or trying to create a catchy slogan. That was us responding to our stakeholders. We took the time to have conversations with our young people, with our parents, with our teachers, with our staff, with the community, to truly understand during the most disruptive time for education, what was needed from us as a school district. Every student known represents the collective voice of the community. That's truly how we've been able to sustain our navigators within and across our district. And Navigator embodies our every student known vision and fuels it. It is a key strategy that supports our goal of knowing, understanding, and supporting every student and drives us through our equity roadmap. So on the slide you have in front of you, those are some of our celebrations from last school year. And I only show this just to exemplify with careful and intentional and strategic planning around your why, how it can accelerate the outcomes of students in so many different ways. And we don't believe our students are just a number here in Metro Nashville Public Schools. We're drilling down to every single student to understand where they are and how we can meet their needs. And so I'm not going to read the celebrations that are on the slide. I just want to highlight that what we're seeing both from an academic standpoint of historic growth for our students. Being a level 5 district means that we exceeded expectations in an annual year of how we were able to grow our students despite what some of the research were telling us around learning progress and learning loss for our students, as well as in a historic manner, increasing the achievement outcomes for our students. We also notice in those academic achievements that around social emotional learning metrics that we made significant improvements in creating more positive, engaging learning environments across our schools and MNPS. We have a historic number of higher performing schools, and we have a historic number of, by way of decreasing the number of priority schools in Metro Nashville Public Schools. So we're really excited about the work and accelerating beyond the kind of the measure that's happened across our entire state. Next slide, please. So as we're thinking about every student known, we are very intentional around how we've identified our core tenets in Metro Nashville Public Schools, as well as our focus outcomes or key performance indicators. We tie everything together around making every student known, because one of the major questions that have come up when you think about a mantra like making every student known, how do you operationalize that? And so, again, I'm so proud to be here with my team that you'll also hear from in just a few moments around the intentionality of tying everything together, and Navigator and success planning being a key strategy for us and how our district works. So we do have our focus outcomes. We're laser clear around the expectations for our students, given their literacy, numeracy, social emotional learning, and transitioning from tier to tier and into post-secondary opportunities. Every Metro Nashville Public School student has a transition plan because we want to make sure that as they move, that their navigators are connecting and they're going deeper around what they know about their students and helping them meet their aspirations. We house this information in a personalized student dashboard that we've created in-house that is an on-demand access to individual assessments, behavioral data, you name it. We've really reconfigured it because our parents have given us lots of feedback and insight around what matters to them and what information they can truly have genuine access around. So there's 24/7 access to that personalized student dashboard. We're also integrating and aligning students to intentional programming and services. For example, our Accelerating Scholars program, which is a high impact tutoring program. You know who helps us make that connection? Our navigators in those individual conversations with their students, as well as our Promising Scholars program, which is our summer learning program that is not about remediation. It's about enrichment for our students and varying learning opportunities and real world connections for our students at no cost. We provide it at no cost. We provide transportation and meals, breakfast and lunch, and snack to all of our students. So our navigators are key to helping us tie all of our district-wide strategies together. It is a pandemic keeper. We, quite frankly, are not even having that conversation anymore. This is a part of our DNA. This is a part of how we function and how our community, quite frankly, expects us to continue to move forward and lifting up our students' voices and being responsive to their individual needs. And Tahita, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, for providing some additional framing and also for providing some additional context. We all know context matters in the way that we do implementation as well as relationships, and you highlighted some key points in both of those areas. So we want to take time to ask you and your team a couple of questions so people can get an even deeper sense or take a deeper dive into what it took to be able to be successful in this implementation. So as a leader of one of the nation's largest school districts with approximately 150 schools, over 80,000 students and $1 billion budget, how did you create buy-in and motivate leaders within the district at all levels? How did you get people to row in the same direction? We know that it's easy to put it on a slide and say it, but the lift of that is probably one of the hardest challenges. So what type of leadership did it take, knowledge, skills, and dispositions for you to be successful in your implementation?
Well, thank you for this question. And this question doesn't fall lightly on me, because systems change, and taking anything to scale in a district our size or larger can be very complex. It can be very complex, and getting everyone rowing in the same direction. So building buy-in for navigators across the multiple levels of our district. I mean, school leadership was critical, our teachers, our support staff, our parents, our community. It took careful planning and effective communication. So I'll step back for just a moment and kind of tie this to my opening comments. We had to start with our why. Right, so starting with our district mantra around every student known was critical to the planning and the communication around why navigators. Our parents had expressed a desire for students to be known and for there to be a response to their needs. And so this was a way for us to operationalize how we, not for just some students, as you all have already highlighted, but for all of our MNPS students, how do you operationalize things? And, you know, fortunately for me, this is one of my strengths in being able to operationalize such large scale initiatives across our district. I'll also be very transparent with you and share that, you know, serving in MNPS for nearly 20 years was also a positive in being able to lift navigators through our district. So leadership, supporting principals in Navigator is ongoing. We continue, we're closing out year 3, but it was critically important as we started with our why to support our leadership and the non-negotiables, but also the freedom to meet the unique learning needs of the students that they were serving. So leadership is critical to any large initiative like this Navigator system through success planning. I'll also kind of highlight our core tenets. I didn't mention them specifically in my opening, but when you think about every student known, when you think about our desire to transition our central office into a support hub, we refer to ourselves as a support hub here in Nashville, because it is our responsibility to support the work that is happening in our schools. And quite frankly, we wanted to make sure this wasn't a due to our schools, our principals and our leaders, but how we can come alongside and be critical thought partners around what it would take in order to begin and sustain our Navigators program. So core tenets, shift into the support hub mindset. One of our core tenets is also to empower and equip leaders at all levels. And when you're thinking about navigators, in order to do that, it was necessary for us to provide professional learning opportunities to our staff and to our leaders around how to operationalize this initiative. We also have a core tenet that we're creating and supporting personalized and rigorous learning opportunities for our students. What not a better way to do this than to have that personal connection to a caring adult within each of our learning communities. And our fourth one is around identifying and eliminating inequities. I must highlight and double down that Navigators is also a part of our equity work. We have a very robust equity roadmap that Ashford Hughes led. You'll hear from him in just a moment, our Executive Officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So this is also about how we can identify and eliminate inequities across our district. And when you think about buy-in, and I know I have lots of my fellow colleagues and educators on the call, there is nothing like having a conversation with a student, submitting that collaborative referral or having that information bubble up through an MTSS multi-tier systems of support meeting, and that support shows up for that student, right? So when you think about buy-in for leaders and for teachers to have that almost immediate response to students' needs, because we're committed to this success planning for our students, is powerful. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that could be more inspiring to our staff than to see the need be met and the impact that it has on our young people. So, you know, again, the principal supports are there, clearly communicating the benefits. We celebrated every win. In fact, we went into this thinking that because of Navigators, our number of collaborative referrals needed would decrease. They actually did the opposite. They increased because our adults were more in tune to the needs of our students. And then what did that do? That defined our budget. It defined our priorities and our resource allocation for our schools. We had to offer professional development opportunities for leaders, for teachers, for staff. We had to share communication wide with our parents and our community. And we celebrated all along the way. Whenever there was a student connection or an opportunity to double down on the post-secondary plans for our students, or having a seamless transition from elementary to middle school because of that connection, or the advocacy for more advanced academic opportunities or industry certifications because of what we were learning for our students, we celebrated that. And that continued to allow us to have momentum around increasing buy-in across all of our stakeholders.
Thank you. Thank you so much for outlining that. I just wanted to lift up two things you said, one around doing with and not to. That is so important when we're thinking about relationships being at the center of the student success work or Navigator work that you implemented, and making sure that everyone is walking alongside each other, including the students and their families, the community, the staff, educators. And then the other thing around you centering students, putting students at the center of the work and really thinking about the impact that it has on students and thinking about the student voice piece. So I just wanted to lift both of those things up, and you all should be commended for doing that. Can you speak a little bit about sustainability? So we talked, I know Michelle highlighted some of the practices that you're thinking about around funding and sustainability, but can you just maybe speak briefly about how did you secure some of the resources and garner other types of supports for Navigators from other stakeholders and partners within the community? We know this is a cross-sector strategy and schools can't do it alone. And we have other people in the community coming alongside and partnering to be able to provide those supports. But if you want to speak a little bit about resources and sustainability.
So I think it's important to remember that buy-in takes time and it is an ongoing effort. So you cannot leave the strategic planning and the why as you continue to sustain anything over time, because needs change, students change. I mean, there's so much that leadership changes. And so you always have to continue to come back to why you are leveraging such a strategy within your district, but also recognizing it takes time. It takes time to get the communication out. It takes time to listen, to provide feedback. We have this practice in MNPS where we have listening sessions and we capture, we heard, you said, we heard, we did, just to show that we are carefully planning based upon the feedback that we are receiving. We provide evidence-based research to our stakeholders. And so we started out with a few quotes from one of our students and our parent who's joining us today, along with kind of the evaluation and research data of why Navigators are so important to our district. We addressed concerns and we provided feedback, right? So Sown to Grow was not a part of our initial Navigators launch. We have a mindset here of doing now and building towards. It was mentioned earlier, we didn't have everything we could have dreamed of to launch Navigators from the beginning. What we did have was talented students and a high quality staff in Metro Nashville Public Schools. And that's what we started first with. When we have this 80,000 plus students that we're designing a system to work for them. We have them and we know that their talents and their aspirations are going to take them far. And we know we have a highly effective staff. How can we bring them together in a way that makes sense, that is efficient, to give our students exactly what they need? And then we built that, connected with the Sown to Grow program and aligned our data system to our student management system. That happened over time. And so when you think about resources, initially, it was very little resources because we looked internally and we thought about what we had access to, and we did our asset mapping, right? And we knew that we had the students, we had the staff, and our parents were bought in because this was all driving based upon our stakeholder feedback. And so as one is thinking about how to launch a Navigator's system or program, think about what you already have internally. In fact, our student management system, we already had. We just had not thought about initially connecting the alignment of our students to the Navigators in that student management program. We had to go and purchase our Sown to Grow, and that happened over time, but did not stop our commitment and our prioritization around our Navigators. And then lastly, we foster collaboration and coordination. So it was mentioned earlier that some of our schools, the way Navigators work in our schools look a little bit different. We don't negotiate on students having a Navigator. We don't negotiate on the ratios. We don't negotiate on who can serve as a Navigator. But one of the examples that was mentioned is we have schools, some of our schools that do late start times. And so they've worked with our community partners to say, hey, this is why we need you here, aligning to our curriculum and bringing the world into our school to help us double down on the standards that our students are engaging in while we connect with our students as Navigators. And so that's one example. You'll also hear a very familiar example in our high schools we have over 400 different business partners working with our high schools right now. And we are leveraging our business partners as guest speakers, and we're getting students out for internships and apprenticeships. And while students are doing that based upon their academy, they're allowing some of that coverage for teachers to continue to go deeper with our students on top of the advisory blocks and personalized learning time. And so it is a very coordinated effort. Initially, when we were launching Navigators and thinking about how to make all this work, I mean, I was very motivated because my high school parents in particular loved that their teachers and their Navigators were calling home to check on them and to make sure that they were on track, and simply helping them navigate during a time of disruption. But we all need that, right? In a normal or better than normal space as well. So that's how we've thought about our resource allocation and how everyone can really play a part. And, just to give you a little insight here, we're also, our human resources department is working on an initiative right now of every employee known as a result of the impact of this focus for our students.
Nice. I can't wait to hear the impact of that. And just thinking about our adults and need the same thing, the sense of belonging, want to feel known and seen and heard the same way young people do. Thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to lift up the intentional coherence and alignment, not only to your goals and the things that you all are working on, but starting where you are. If there's any lesson learned, don't not start something because you don't have everything in place, but leverage the resources that you have and then build as you go to work towards that, not only success, but to provide an excellent implementation. Dr. Springer, if you want to talk a little bit about the support that families have for the program. So they are significantly supporting this effort. And Dr. Battle, you just talked about families buying in and them opting into their children participating. What strategies have you implemented to build those trusting relationships to address student privacy and then also to successfully engage families throughout the process? And then also, what may have been some key lessons you learned from effective family engagement?
Certainly. I think the most effective strategies to building support for the Navigator initiative amongst our families is twofold. The first being open and transparent communication, and then secondly, being clear about the benefits of Navigator. As Dr. Battle called out several times, on the heel of the tornado and pandemic, we had to make sure that we could locate our students. We knew what our students needed, and that they had exactly what they needed. So on the heels of that, what could be a tragedy, we were well on our way to scaling supports to our students. So our families were accustomed to this level of support. So in Navigator, we just made it official. We opened our virtual support hubs to our families when our doors to the schools were closed during the pandemic. And our families told us what's most critical is that our students are known and that they have what they need, and that still holds true today. So clearly communicating the goals and benefits of the Navigator initiative to our families early on was simple. It was in response to what they said that they needed. We heard our parents and we did what they said. Our parents were clear that the goal was to ensure that we have our students on a path to success no matter what's happening in our district, in our country, et cetera. And Navigator was the vehicle to do so. So we widely communicated Navigator across the multitudes layers of the organization, from our students to our families, to our stakeholders, to our community partners, as what was mentioned earlier. And noting that this is about enhancing the educational experience of our students. So when we widely communicated, it was through newsletters, it was through websites, virtual meetings, social media platforms. So our families were well aware of Navigator and the support that it is intended to provide early on. Luckily for us, our families were used to this level of support. A strategy in our district is around our academy model in our high schools. This is a key strategy for leveraging our student to teacher relationships in small learning communities or advisories. So this idea that there's this small pocket of students that an adult is responsible for and making sure that they're cared for was nothing new. So we leveraged what we knew worked and implemented Navigator. It was a seamless transition. Our families were clear that this is a way that we would enhance communication with them. We will give them timely updates on student progress. We'll collaborate with home and school. So they were all on board. Whenever there was an issue or a conversation or a concern regarding student privacy, we were clear about that on the front end. We understand that those privacy concerns are valid, and we work to address them proactively. So within our handbook, we clearly outline to our families that we are all about our students' privacy and data security, and that it's our top priority. We explained clearly the measures that were in place to protect their students. So only the Navigator that serves that student will be privy to that information. In addition, MPS does offer opt-outs to our families if needed. A small percentage of our families take advantage of that with our Navigator initiative. But we wanted to make sure that we were shoring up our data sharing agreements and making sure that we were keeping confidential information confidential and being respectful of our students and our families as well. We respect our families' choices. We ensure that they have these options and these preferences are honored, which we believe builds the trust with our families. So through the lessons learned, I believe that our families have appreciated having this mechanism to provide feedback ongoing. So we have, as Dr. Battle mentioned, these listening sessions. We have our family university. We have parent surveys, and we're listening for how Navigator is positively impacting their families or ways that we can improve. So we actively listen to that feedback and we address those concerns promptly, transparently, so that everyone is clear about we heard you and here's what we're doing about it. We're also focused on making sure that we build in that support to address those family concerns and student concerns and staff concerns for that matter ongoing. It is about continuous improvement for us. We have open communication through our director cabinets with our students, our staff, and as well as our families. We're just transparent and we're open. And we're always willing to make the adjustments needed to ensure that the Navigator initiative is a complete success for not only our students and our staff, but also our families as well.
Thank you so much. We have about maybe 10 or 12 minutes left to the panel discussion, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. Thank you so much for focusing in on the family engagement piece. It is sometimes the heaviest part to lift around getting the buy-in from families, but when you partner with them and you have intentionality around that from the beginning, then you're not selling something to someone. They were a part of creating it. And when people are a part of creating something, then they own it themselves and will support it. Ashford, if you want to talk a little bit about both Dr. Battle and Dr. Springer talked a little bit about the student voice and the buy-in piece. Can you talk a little bit about how Navigator has made a positive difference? We heard the quote from the student earlier, but how would you say it contributed to advancing social emotional learning and student voice?
Thank you for that question. We believe the Navigator initiative, partnering with the Sown to Grow platform, has contributed significantly. We first, as Dr. Battle alluded to, have an equity roadmap that looks through an equity lens, and we look at our SEL components through that equity lens. So first and foremost to this was the SEL integration. The Navigator platform made sure to provide opportunities to integrate SEL into student daily activities through our core competencies of our SEL understanding about self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, social awareness, responsible decision-making. We understood that this was important to students' learning. This also set to help and monitor our students' goals, reflect on their progress, and to receive consistent feedback from teachers and their peers. We understand and we knew through this work, this fosters their personal growth and resilience and their advocacy, all leading towards that student voice piece that we talk about. So we also see within this process, student reflection and ownership. The Navigator platform helped us to encourage student reflection, empowering our students to take ownership of their learning and their social emotional development. Through particular various self-reflection prompts, students learn to express their thoughts, their feelings, their insights, and their learning experiences. This reflection process, and it is a process, helps students to develop a deeper understanding of their own emotions. And as Dr. Springer alluded to, we had a lot going on in our community that we needed to ensure that our students understood how to communicate what they were feeling. And we understand that the Navigator program and Sown to Grow is an avenue to help them go down that pathway. Important is the student voice amplification. The Sown to Grow platform specifically aims at amplifying our student voice by providing them with the platform for students to set goals, track their progress, and share their reflections. Important in that is to share their reflections. This empowers our students to take an active role in their education, express their opinions, and continue to contribute their own learning journey. And we view this amplification of student voice along a continuum, being teacher-centered, learner-centered, and being then learner-driven. And this was a process that we know that this took. By valuing and integrating student perspectives, the initiative enhances student engagement and promotes a sense of student agency. This also was important for educator-student collaboration. Again, I go back to that building authentic student relationships. The Navigator and the Sown to Grow platforms facilitate collaboration between educators and students, vitally important in what's taking place in our education process today. Teachers can also provide feedback, guidance, and support based on student reflections and goals to progress. Vitally important that we see the SEL for students, but also the SEL for teachers embraced in this process. This collaborational relationship enhances trust, communication, and empathy between our educators, our students, which will then, we know, lead to fostering a positive learning student environment. We are so proud of this progress because by combining the Navigator initiative with the Sown to Grow platform, schools can create comprehensive frameworks for advancing what we call transformative SEL and amplifying student voice work. The platform provides our educators and our students with the tools for goal setting, progress tracking, reflection, and collaboration. This is vitally important as we work with our students on understanding their role in experiencing what they want and articulating how they want to go about getting those things. And this is where we continue to be proud of along our journey for this work.
Thank you so much for sharing about the student voice. And we all know that you started with social emotional learning being one of the 4 ways in which you were thinking about navigators, and now even thinking about some of the academic supports that are being highlighted now, and then really thinking about that sense of belonging. I want to turn to Sarah Chen. If you want to talk a little bit about the lessons learned in implementing Navigator over the past 3 years in the current practice, and then how has data informed your decision making? So we talked about a data platform, but a data platform does not make for you to be able to tell the story, the full story. So how are you thinking about data to drive your decision making? And continuous improvement was talked about several times throughout this. So how are you using it for continuous improvement?
Yeah, so I'd love to share a couple of specific examples of how we've done that. So this fall, one of the things that we get by using the Sown to Grow platform, and of course the way that we're tracking those monthly Navigator check-ins as well, is pretty consistent real-time data in terms of which schools are actually doing their check-ins and which teachers are doing their check-ins. So it means that we have pretty up-to-date data in terms of what actual implementation of those check-ins are actually occurring. So in December of this year, I think this is just a really good illustration of how we've used that data to change our practice. In December of this year, Dr. Springer and I pulled a list of what were effectively our 30 lowest implementation schools. So which were the schools where we saw the least pairs of navigators with students, where we saw the least uptake of those regular meetings, and the least evidence of those things, basically that work going into practice at the school. So with that, we took those 30 principals and we basically did a series of focus groups to understand, basically to first of all, reinvest them in why we were doing this, like sharing some of the data we'd seen from other sites in terms of that panorama data and that positive data that pointed to the positive effect of the work. And then also to get very frank feedback from them on what were the big barriers of implementation. And we learned some really key things about why there were some schools that just weren't implementing the model in the same way that we saw other schools were doing that. So one was updating our scripts. We had seen that some of our schools had just really naturally embraced the idea that the scripts could be evolved in order to meet students' more direct needs. Others were making sure we were deliberately combining across our platform, having one consistent platform so that people were having to log into more than one place, and basically use that data in those focus groups to make some changes to how we were implementing the model in some of those schools, so that we saw then that uptick. Basically, when we moved those barriers away for our principals, we saw then that uptick in positive implementation at those sites. So I think that's a really big area to focus on, and make sure that we are actually seeing then the changes in implementation, connecting that to the places we're seeing those changes in data when we're measuring those SEL outcomes.
Thank you so much. Dr. Springer, I want to go back. I know Ashford touched on social emotional learning. Thank you for talking about the data piece and the continuous improvement. Just want to go back a little bit to if there was anything else you wanted to add around social emotional learning, this would be the time to do that as well. Around maybe some of the more systems approach. And then I have one more question for Dr. Battle and Elise, if you would want to answer that question as well, before we want to make sure we save time for the participant questions as well.
The only thing that I would add is to Chief Chin's point, we continue to monitor and support the data. So since our first year of implementation, we continue to iterate the systems as she called out, and now have continued to have increased number of check-ins with our students. And those check-ins have resulted in more collaborative referrals for our students and more coordinated supports and services. And that we are excited about. For our students who express the lowest sense of belonging in a school at some point, this check-in approach supported about a 15% growth in that student feeling happiness at the end of the school year and throughout the school year. So to us, that data point is critical. It lets us know whether it's happening for our students or it's not, and we will adjust and monitor accordingly. And that's really all I wanted to add in respect to the SEL and strength.
Thank you for tying that, because sometimes I think we have the data points, but we don't tie it back to the so what, like why is it important, and then how are we gonna change and think about continuous improvement. So Dr. Battle, I'll ask you this question, and Elise, if you want to answer the question as well. As you reflect on Navigator during the most recent school year, what are you most proud of? And maybe Elise, you can answer, and then Dr. Battle can close up on this piece before we go to the Q&A. As you reflect on Navigator during the most recent school year, what are you most proud of? And what are you most excited for the Navigator initiative in the next academic year?
Sure, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I will say that what most excites me about our continued work with Navigators is the refinement of systems and structures that ensure that all students are meeting their academic outcomes. And evidence of systems that work, we are in that season of graduation. And for every student that walks across the stage, that is evidence of a system that has been successful, a system that has been personalized, a system that is focused on academic outcomes with an understanding that there absolutely has to be SEL integration. So as we continue to iterate and think about Navigator 2.0 and Navigator 3.0 and Navigator, whatever it may look like, what most excites me about this work is the opportunity to continue to strengthen, enhance, and refine these systems so that we can ensure that every student is known and that every student has a plan for post-secondary success and that they understand that the world is theirs. Dr. Battle.
Well, thank you, Dr. Norris. I think you summed it up there in your response. I mean, the only thing I'll add to with regards to what I'm most proud of, I talk often about creating designing a system that works for all students, and the positive contribution of the Navigators to designing that system, I'm really, really proud of. You know, ultimately, we're held accountable for the academic outcomes for our students and the level of preparedness for our students as they move on to post-secondary opportunities. And, you know, Navigators has supported us in kind of moving the goalposts, if you will, that intentional conversations, not just about the high school diploma, but the accountability we carry for how students matriculate and persist through post-secondary opportunities. And so this has allowed us to kind of move that goalpost, right? Like the handoff, the seamless transition into those post-secondary career opportunities, because we have transition plans and we know what our students are, where their aspirations are. And so that's been a proud moment. I'm a graduate of Nashville Public Schools, and I know some of the experiences that even some of my peers had at graduates that actually differed from mine. And so that's been an inspiration for me as the superintendent of MNPS to design the system that works for all students while they're with us and expanding our reach beyond once they graduate from high school. I'm most excited about, okay, so we know in education, things just shift and change all the time. We're going into the next year focusing on deepening our practice, right? Like we know what works. This is working for our students. We're seeing it in every data point you can think of. Ready graduates and, you know, industry certifications and advanced coursework accomplishments. So we're seeing the outcomes in so many different ways, and the ability for us to stay focused as a district moving into next school year and just simply taking the lessons learned, deepening our practice. We are not having a conversation right now around if Navigators are going to move. Like that is who we are. Now it's just about creating even more efficient and effective systems of support for our students. And I love the challenge my team is giving me. Once we identify the need, I love advocating to meet that need for our students. So whether that be in the community school expansion space, whether that be mental health supports, whether that be, I mean, you name it, extended into the summer and extended learning before and after school, out of school time space. I love the demand of advocating to my school board, to our mayor, and to our council to step up and meet that need, because what's been proven is when we have this type of support in place for our students and we can articulate our why and what we're trying to accomplish, the needs are being met. We are seeing historic commitments and investments in our school district because of the clarity we all have given our Navigator system and those transition plans that we're creating for our young people.
Thank you so much for highlighting all of that and for all of the information you shared. I'm looking at the chat and people are giving you shout outs. People are talking about how intentional this is and people are really excited about what you shared. I want to spend some time taking some questions from participants, and then I have one last closing question for you, Dr. Battle, before we finish. So Dr. Norris and Dr. Battle, thanks for answering that question. Two questions are in the same vein. One talks about elaborating on key challenges you encountered and how you successfully overcame those. And I think you talked a little bit about that, but then also about how were you intentional about engaging stakeholders and that might have had some initial skepticism about the implementation process.
Yeah, happy to jump in here. I think one, particularly as we were transitioning back to the in-person learning environment, there were some questions of, oh, that was just during the virtual space, right? We're not transitioning this into the in-person learning environment. And I think, again, just going back to the why, that really did help us kind of put that to rest and move forward. We were launching this during a time where there was lots of national rhetoric around particularly social emotional learning, connecting and understanding in a deep way what students were experiencing, whether that be in school or home or within the community. And so we were aware of that. I mean, we were quite fortunate that that didn't seep into our ability here in MNPS, but we were aware that that could be a threat to our ability to launch Navigators in the way that we were able to. And I think Sarah, who serves as our chief of strategy, identified we were trying to progress monitor, because again, large scale, and we're talking about all students, how are we going to progress monitor to make sure that this is a reality for every MNPS student? Because here I am as a superintendent, and I'm talking about every student known and Navigators. Like, we have to have the assurances that this is the reality for every student. And so we had to be very bold and aggressive in our progress monitoring, and being courageous to have those critical coaching conversations when needed. As Sarah mentioned, that paid off for us twofold because we had the conversations, we removed barriers, and then we were seeing buy-in deeper than we originally experienced with our principals. We did have an initial challenge around linking students and Navigators, like how could we visually see that linking for our students? Because when I have a question or concern that comes to me as superintendent, one of my first questions is, who is the student's Navigator? We need to connect with them. We need to learn more about the student before we make assumptions around a decision or choice that the student has made. And so that linking in the student management system has been critical, because that's who I need to talk to if I have to make a tough decision around a decision that a student has made. So those have definitely been some of the challenges. I mean, we did have a question early on around compensation. Let's just put it out there. Our Navigators are not compensated additionally for serving as a Navigator. And we've been able to kind of, in our do now and build towards mindset, move forward with that, because Navigators is part of who we are. And if we are serious about every student being known, this is how we can ensure that is true for all of our MNPS students. And we are very strategic, as Dr. Norris mentioned, about our systems and structures. When we visit schools and we are there to see all the greatness happening, my team knows the one of the questions I am going to ask is, how are you ensuring that every student is known on your campus? I expect to hear feedback around Navigators, as well as all the other innovations that are happening across our campuses.
Thank you for that. And then I'm going to couple maybe two more questions, and then I think we might have to do the closing question. So there are two questions around the Navigator role in capacity building. So can you speak a little bit to the capacity building of Navigators around data literacy, and then also how Navigators are matched? So like the matching process, and then also the capacity building of Navigators.
Yeah, Dr. Springer, I think that's a great question for you, given the handbook and how we kind of progress monitor the matching process.
Absolutely. I'll start with the building of the capacity. We're thinking about goal setting for our schools. It's really all connected, as Dr. Battle mentioned. The schools have strong systems of data reflection that they already have in place with their instructional leadership teams, and they're constantly reviewing the data. So that's part of the multi-tiered systems of support, where we are ongoing monitoring, tracking where our students' progress lands. So that's already a structure that was already in place. On a monthly basis, we have meetings with our Navigator leads in our schools. And during that time, they're receiving capacity building strategies around goal setting, reviewing the data, how to respond to the data in a timely manner, whether it be academic or non-academic. So my response to that, short and sweet, would be you leverage the systems that are already in place. If you have a multi-tiered system of support, we are already managing and reviewing data on an ongoing basis. Utilize that to then build the capacity of your teams, or whether it be literacy or whatever the area may be. So that's one way we've been able to build capacity of those teams, through the training, the handbook, and the monthly meetings with our Navigator leads and the work that's happening in our schools. And then lastly, you're asked about the matching. So what we knew to be true this year is that we wanted to be very explicit and clear about how our navigators are matched. Our buildings know best. So our buildings are looking at those students as they're transitioning from year to year and determining their needs. Based upon that, then our schools will take time at the end of the year, during the summer, to identify which students would best benefit matching up with which adult. Ideally, in our school district, and what typically happens is that student stays with that same navigator year over year, as you've seen with our board member feedback, that he had his navigator for since the 7th grade. And what we want is that same trajectory, that seamless support to happen for our students. So we're intentional about the matching. We want it to be a good fit. We want it to be a long-lasting student to teacher relationship with our navigator. So we want to be intentional. And we also want to mark that our students are matched with this individual in our data management system. So it is very clear who the student's navigator is. Our director of schools at any given time can go in, see who they're matched with, and it's done with intentionality at the school level.
And Dr. Springer, if I can add just very briefly, the importance of senior leaders modeling what that process looks like. And so very intentional about our ability to model the conversations, leveraging the data, evaluating our systems, making those connections. Again, I think it goes back to our transparency and the way we like to communicate, but we take it very seriously, and we know it's critical to continuing to deepen our practice in this way for us to model what we expect with our school leaders.
And Dr. Battle, if you, or I don't know if Dr. Springer, there was a question, if we can just maybe take 30 seconds. I just want to make sure that this is answered. People were asking, it's a build on to what we just talked about around the capacity building. We were talking about how are IEPs and ESOL plans, how are the students, there's a walk alongside both of those plans, and then also the child welfare preventive services component. So how are all of those things integrated into the way that you have Navigator set up?
I can take a stab, Dr. Battle, and then you feel free to add. I'll go back to our multi-tiered system of support. We're in those meetings, our schools are looking at each individual student. They are identifying their academic need and their social emotional need, and they are aligning coordinated supports and services. Our district has been critical, paired with Navigator, has been critically focused on ensuring that our schools have a package of support. So our schools have counselors, increased mental health supports, they have social workers, they have advocacy centers, which is that one person to help with the regulation as needed. So that package of support is then designed to respond to whatever the needs come up, preventatively or reactively when we see that needs have arisen. So we wanted to make sure that the Navigator support through the collaborative referral process we mentioned and identifying needs in our MTSS structure really led to bolstering the Navigator initiative in our district. Team, feel free to lean in that space if you want to add anything.
Thank you for answering that. I just wanted to make sure, because that's a critical component. It's a question we get asked all the time at EdRedesign, and wanted to make sure we addressed it. So what I'll do is I'll ask all of the participants, thank you for your good questions. I'll ask you to write one key learning or one aha or one light bulb moment that you had during this presentation in the chat box while Dr. Battle responds to our final question. We want to encourage you, if you are not a part of EdRedesign's learning community for success planning, you can do that and just connect with us on that, and then just really have some time to really reflect on what you heard, and then reach back out if you want to get connected in that way. Michelle. So the last question, Dr. Ballard, I had from you is, what advice would you give to other districts and community leaders on that are interested in implementing a personalized relationship-based approach, such as Navigators or success planning? What is your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with just surrounding yourself with great leaders and expertise. There is not anything that I can live without my amazing team. You've heard from many of them today. I must give a shout out to Dr. Carrie Randolph, who was with us at the time of our original launch, who had been studying success planning for quite some time as we entered into our devastating tornado and the pandemic that disrupted learning for us back in March of 2020. But having a great team in place who understands the why, who gets it, and who will remove barriers to your success in implementation. We have a mantra, a model mindset here around continuous improvement. It is very well known. Our commitment is to know where you are, but do not stay there. And so as we continue to reflect on our implementation and our ability to go deeper around our Navigators system, we are really comfortable and have set the conditions around the trust and transparency around what's working well and what things we need to continue to focus on. Having a leadership mindset. I've said this a few times in our conversation today. Focus on what you can do now and build towards. This has been such a learning for us because we all want to do everything right now. But sometimes having that mindset kind of paralyzes you and then to doing nothing. And so just being bold and courageous and not shying away from your ideal space and what we know is good for our young people. So continuing that leadership mindset around do now and build towards. Navigator continues to evolve. We're continuing to, tweak and pivot where we need to. We have a session coming up with our principal leaders in about 2 weeks where we kind of fishbowl and we talk about what's going well and where do we talk about our successes, because we also don't want to make a change to something that's working well and unintentionally cause a disruption in our system. But we'll be talking about what's going well and how we can continue to move forward. The conversation I'm comfortable with saying today won't be if we're going to move forward with Navigators, because we have such a strong buy-in and commitment across our district, which leads me to the last one, collective buy-in. Again, the steering away from doing to schools, principals, and teachers. We know as educational leaders, we all have plenty on our plate. What we should be doing is clearing that plate, but ultimately bringing clarity to what we place on our plate to make sure the students have what they need. We are intentional around the SEL and academic integration. And so continuing, it's not one or the other. This is an and so continuing to have conversations and planning around how to integrate those models and trying to avoid the in addition to, right? This is a part of who we are and what we should be doing for our young people. So success planning, Navigators, however that may look in your district, in your city. There is not a one size kind of fits all. I think we all have to figure out what works for our learning communities and start now and planning towards those successful pathways that we know we want to ensure for all of our students.
Thank you so much. I want to send a big shout out to the entire Metro Nashville team. So Dr. Battle, the Director of Schools, Dr. Springer, the Chief of Student Support Services, Dr. Norris, Executive Officer in Strategy Performance Management, Ashford Hughes, Executive Officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Sarah Chin, the Chief Strategy Officer. It truly takes a team to be able to lift this. So I want to thank everyone on the team for not only helping to contribute to writing the case and also doing the great work that you do every day on behalf of young people in Metro Nashville Public Schools, but also that we are lifting the learning that you all are doing locally to be able to inform the field, both nationally and internationally, as Dr. Battle pointed out earlier. I want to thank Michelle and the research team for writing the case and all of you for participating on the call today. With that, we are going to end the call. Michelle, I don't know if you have a brief survey that you want to launch. Dr. Battle, anybody in the team, I don't know if you have any last words, but thank you so much on behalf of EdRedesign and our entire team.